Yes.
Okay, all right. So thanks for joining me today for this final grammar clinic session before the Christmas period. This will be the last one for 2024, and then we will start again in 2025. So every Monday we'll be looking at different grammar structures which will help you with your learning here at Elizabeth School of London with your presentations or with your assignments, things like that. So, my name is Kieran. I am one of your English support tutors on the Manchester campus of Elizabeth School of London. And today we are going to develop the ideas that we looked at last week. So, last week we were looking at conditional sentences. Today we're going to have a little sequel to that, but we're going to take it further. We're going to develop it more. We're going to see then how you could use those in your assignments. Okay. So let's look at what our objectives are for today. So we are going to be looking specifically at the concept of mixed conditional sentences. And we're going to explore the different types of mixed conditional sentences. We're going to learn how to structure them and how to form mixed conditional sentences as well. But one of the most important things also is to look at how they are commonly used, the different patterns that we use as well. Okay, so those are our objectives for this morning. But let's just have a little recap of what we looked at last lesson, because what we looked at last lesson is going to inform the things we look at today. Okay, so in our last session, we looked at the second conditional and we looked at the third conditional, two separate constructions, and we looked at how they describe unreal situations, with the second conditional looking at the unreal present and the third conditional looking at the unreal past. So they are super important today, and we'll find out why later on. Okay, so the second conditional we looked at, as I've just said, was about the unreal present. So this was with an example sentence like, if I were taller, I would be a basketball player. Okay, so this is talking about me in the present. I am not taller, so I am not a basketball player. So this is an unreal sentence. Okay, and the way we made it was in the two separate parts of the sentence, we had if and past simple at the start. Okay, so as you can see here, if plus past simple, we had if I were taller. Okay. Then in the second part of the sentence, we should have would or could, depending on what you want to say, and then the base form of the verb. So we have would, and then we have the verb to be. So we know that this sentence is second conditional because it follows that formation. Okay, so that is second conditional. So hopefully we remember that from last time. And the next one that we looked at last lesson was the third conditional, which talked about an unreal past. Okay, so we have an example sentence here. If I had prepared more, I would have passed the exam. But I didn't prepare more and I didn't pass the exam. So that's how we know it is an unreal past situation. Okay, so the way that we make it is with if plus had plus the past participle form of the verb, which is the third form, if you need any help with that. We also need would plus have plus the past participle again, the third form of the verb. So quite a complicated formation there. Seems quite mathematical, but if you follow it, then you really can't go wrong. Okay, so in our example sentence, we have if, we have had, we have the third form, we have would, we have, and then we have the third form again. Okay, so that is telling us about something unreal in the past and what is the past result of that unreal thing. Okay, so that's what we looked at last lesson. And this leads us on to what we look at today's lesson, because there is something that we need to think about. How could we describe something if you have an unreal present, which then creates in the past something unreal as well? And the opposite way round. How can we describe a situation if there is an unreal past and this creates an unreal present? Okay. So you might want to think back to some of those kind of time travel films, sci-fi films, things like that, where somebody goes into the past, changes something in the past, and then the present is changed as well. Okay. Or again, in a similar situation, something happens in the present, something different from reality, and that therefore changes something in the past as well. Because we've looked at how second conditional talks about unreal past and how second conditional talks about an unreal present and then has unreal results in the present. We've looked at how the third conditional talks about an unreal past and then has some unreal consequences. But what if we kind of mix those two ideas? Well, when we mix those two ideas, it gives us something called mixed conditionals. Okay. So helpfully and usefully for students, mixed conditionals both have the mixed concept of the past with the present and the present with the past, but you also make it in the same way as you take a part of the second, you take a part of the third, and mix them together. Okay. So let's think about what situations use mixed conditionals. So they can be used to talk about regrets and consequences. Okay, so something would be something like, if they had listened to me, that's an unreal past, they wouldn't be in trouble now, an unreal present. Okay, so this is a regret here, like, oh my, why did they not listen to me? Okay, okay, so they didn't listen to me in the past, they're in trouble now, so this is a mixed conditional. Okay, mixed conditionals can also talk about hypothetical comparisons. So in the example sentence here, if she hadn't moved to another country, we would still be best friends. Okay, but she did move to another country, so we are not best friends anymore. Okay, so there is this link between past and present, present and past. Okay, so mixed conditionals, as we've said, mix second and third conditional or third and second conditional like that. So it can often be confusing when you're talking about them about which specific ones you're describing. So just for this lesson, we're going to describe them as type A and type B because they will be constructed in different ways and they will have different functions. So type A and type B. Okay, so let's look at these here. So each type of mixed conditional sentence has a specific clear structure based on the tenses that are included in them. So there is a way to make the if part of the sentence, and there is a way to make the result part of the sentence. Okay, so it may be good to take a screenshot of this or to write it down or pause the video and write it like this, okay? Because it gets a little bit complicated in this situation. So the type A sentence for us is a mixture of second and third conditional. So the if part of the sentence has the first part of a second conditional sentence. So it has just if plus past simple. The result part of the sentence is in the past. So it's the third conditional. So you need to have the result part of a third conditional sentence. So this is would plus have plus past participle. Okay, so that's a mixture of second and third, the first part of second conditional and the second part of a third conditional. The type B conditional sentence is the opposite way round. It talks about something different in the past, third conditional, and the result in the present, second conditional. So the first part of the sentence is in third conditional, and the second part of the sentence is in second conditional. So that means you need to use if plus had plus the past participle, the third form, and then would or could plus the base form of the verb. Okay, so we will repeat this later on to remember them, but that is basically the formula for each type of sentence. Okay, so let's focus on the first one, which was mentioned there, which was type A. So this is mixing the idea of the second conditional, which is the present and real situation, and then the third conditional, which is the past and real situation. So as a visualization, you might like to think of this as kind of normal time. Okay, so from the past to now. Okay, so this is what normally happens, but we might want to think about something strange happens in the present. We now have an unreal present. And then this means also that the past is different as well. Okay, so something strange or magical or weird happens in the present, and therefore the past changes as well. So it's talking about something unreal in the present, which then creates something unreal in the past. So, as we've mentioned, if plus past simple, would, have plus past participle, the third form. So an example sentence is, if she were more confident. So if were, past simple, would have plus past participle, she would have passed the interview. So we need to imagine that this person, this woman, were more confident here in the present. Then that would mean in the past, she would have passed the interview, she would have got the job, she would be, a happier person. Okay, so that is talking about something in the present, and then therefore the past would be different as well. So here are some other examples that can help to make it clear. Okay, so if I were a good cook in the present, I would have invited those people to the dinner, at the weekend. But because I'm not a good cook, I didn't invite those people. In the next one, if you were better at speaking in public, the presentation would have been more successful. So this person, this friend is not very good in the present at speaking in public. So therefore that presentation in the past was a little bit of a disaster. Okay. If you weren't so blind to his faults, okay, so this is a problem with your personality. You can't see other people's bad sides of their life. You would have realized that he was going to deceive you. So because you're not good at judging other people's character here, now, in the present, that means in the past, this other person lied to you. Another example, if I spoke better English, so maybe in the present, now your English isn't very good. That meant that you could have got the job in the past, but because your English isn't good, you didn't get that job in the past. All right, and then the last one we have here, if you were smarter, you wouldn't have borrowed money from such a man. But it could be in a situation you are not very smart in the present. So therefore, in the past, you did this thing that isn't a good idea. You borrowed money from a loan shark or something like that. Okay. So this is where we would have a little exercise then. Okay. So this is where we are going to practice creating that type A sentence, which was if plus past simple, would, have plus past participle. So our situation is last week, Nick went on vacation to France. So we're going to see some facts about Nick and some problems that he had in France. And then we are going to write some type A conditional sentences like we will see in the example here. Okay, So when he went to France, he didn't understand the locals. Okay. But if we imagine, so this was in the normal situation, he went to France in the past, he didn't understand the locals. All right. That is because he doesn't speak French. But let's imagine he does speak French, therefore the past would be different. So if he could speak French, he would have understood the locals when he was there in France. Okay. So let's have a look at the second sentence here. So when he was in France in the past, he didn't visit any art museums. Well, if we look at some of these facts up here, it tells us that he isn't interested in art. So he didn't visit any museums. He isn't interested in art. But let's imagine that is different. Let's imagine he is interested in art. Therefore, the past would be different. Okay, so we could say if he were interested in art, now in the present, he would have visited art museums when he was in France. Okay. In the next one, he stayed at a cheap hotel. Okay, so let's look at what information can help us here. He stayed at a cheap hotel. So that's probably because he isn't rich. So in a normal world, he stayed at a cheap hotel. The reason is he isn't rich. But let's change the reality. Let's imagine he is rich. So that means when he was in France, he would have stayed at a better hotel, in a more expensive hotel, maybe. So we could say he would have stayed at an expensive hotel if he were rich. All right. So, number 4, when he was in France, he didn't try any French wine. Okay, so why is that? Yeah, it's because he doesn't drink alcohol. But let's imagine that now in the present he does drink alcohol. So this is unreal in the present. This would make the past unreal as well. So if he drank alcohol, he would have tried some French wine. Right, on to the next sentence then. So he went there during winter. Okay, so this is in reality. He went there during winter. And that is because he works in the summer. But let's imagine he didn't work in the summer. Okay, so that would mean that he could travel to France in the summer instead. So our sentence would be, if he didn't work in the summer, he would have gone then in the summer. And then in the last one here, number 6, he got food poisoning in the evening. And what is our reason for this one? He never cooks his meals well. Okay, so he got food poisoning. Why? Because he's bad at cooking. But let's imagine that that reality is different, and therefore the past would be different. So if he cooked his lunches well, he wouldn't have got food poisoning. Okay, so in those situations there, we have very clear ideas of how if we have a different present, then we have a different past as well. Okay, and all of those sentences follow that structure of if, past simple, would plus have plus the third form of the verb. Okay, so let's think about some questions we can ask ourselves in this situation of how, if the present was different, the past would be different as well. So if you were the leader of your country, what would you have done differently in the last 5 years? Okay, so that means that something is changed in the present. You are the leader of your country. How would the past 5 years have been different? Okay, would you have given more money to schools and hospitals, things like that? Okay. In the next sentence, if you were extremely good looking, how would your life have been different so far? Okay, so if that was happening in the present, how would your life have been different in the past? Would you have got a modeling career? Would you have got more jobs? Would you have got more attention from people? Okay. Next one. If you were the opposite gender, how would your childhood have been different? Would there have been any changes at all? Okay. And then in the last one, if you were a millionaire, okay, so something different in the present, how would you have spent your last holiday? Would you have been on some executive island, some exclusive place? Okay. So those are ideas to think about to help you imagine how these mixed conditionals would look. Okay, so that was type A. So that one's out of the way now. And let's now focus on type B. So type B matches third conditional with second conditional. So this is if you want to talk about, and this is maybe the easier one to understand, how something unreal in the past would then create something unreal in the present. Okay, so this is the normal period of time from the past to now. Okay, so maybe something magical or strange or weird happened in the past. So there is now a different past. So if there is a different past, that would then mean that there is then a different now as well. Okay. All right. So that is what this type B sentence is describing. So you make it using the first part of a third conditional sentence. We need if plus had plus past participle, the third form. And then in the next part of the sentence, you use the second part of a second conditional sentence, which is would or could plus the base form of the verb. So this is where you would have an example sentence with something like, if I had been born in Canada, I would know French and English. Okay, so we have a different past. Maybe you were not born in Canada. I imagine you're not. Okay, so that would be a different past. And then your present would then be different too. So does it follow the same structure? Yes, it does. If plus had plus the past participle form of the verb, would plus the base form of the verb. Okay. So yeah, if you had been born in Canada, it is a country that has two official languages. You in school, or well, at home, maybe you would speak English and you would learn French at school, or the opposite way around. You would speak French at home and you would learn English in school. So now you are at this time in your life, you would know both of those languages. Okay. So let's have a look at some other examples that could make this concept easier to understand. Okay, so if she hadn't missed the plane yesterday, she would be here in Bristol now, today. So what we know is that she did miss the plane yesterday. She is not here in Bristol, but we are imagining that it is unreal. If she did not miss the plane, she would be in Bristol now. Okay. In the second sentence, if you had been careful yesterday, you wouldn't be in hospital today. So what happened is this person was not careful, so they are now in hospital, broken bones or burns or cuts or something. But we are imagining that it is unreal, that they were careful. That would mean an unreal present, that they are not in hospital today. On to the next sentence. If he had checked the map before the trip, he wouldn't be lost, now, today. So he didn't check the map. He is lost now. But if we make it unreal, if let's imagine he did check the map, that means he isn't lost now. All right, on to the fourth sentence here. If I had taken my umbrella this morning, I wouldn't be wet now. So this person didn't take their umbrella in the past. They are wet now in the present. But if we make it unreal, the person did take their umbrella. They are not wet now. Okay. Another sentence here, if Bill Gates hadn't founded Microsoft, he wouldn't be rich now. Okay, so Bill Gates did found Microsoft in the past. He is rich now, but we want to change it around. We want it to be imaginary. Okay, so we imagine Bill Gates didn't found Microsoft. Therefore, that means he isn't rich now in the present. And on to the last sentence. If I had taken an aspirin, I wouldn't have a headache now. So the real situation is the person didn't take an aspirin. They do have a headache now, but they are hoping, wishing, imagining they did take an aspirin, so they don't have a headache now. So this is the clear link between a different imaginary past that leads us to a different imaginary present. Okay, so in this exercise, then, we are going to make sentences based on that type B conditional sentence, which is third conditional and second conditional together. So if I not break my leg last month, I be able to join the marathon today. So the correct way to make this sentence would be, if I had not broken my leg last month, I would be able to join the marathon today. So we have if, had, third form, would, and then the base form of the verb. Okay, so we can do that again with the second one. So if plus had plus third form. If had studied, so if she had studied medicine, she would be a doctor today. Okay. If we look at the next sentence, so if we leave earlier, we not be stuck in traffic now. So like we said, we need if plus we plus had plus the third form. So if we had left earlier, then we need would and then the base form of the verb. So would not be. So if we had left earlier, we would not be stuck in traffic now. Okay, on to the next one. So again, it just always follows the same formula. So if they, and then remember we need had and the third form. So had not cancelled the project last year, we, and then we need would and the base form. We would have funding for it now. Is it correct? Of course it is. Very good. Next one. So again, we just follow the same structure. So if plus had plus third form, would and base form. So if I had taken that job offer, I would work in a big city. No? Okay. Or would be working if you want to make it continuous. And then the same one for the last one. So if he had plus third form had not missed his flight, he would plus base, he would already be here with us now. Okay, all right. So that shows that we can make this type B mixed conditional sentence correctly. So let's think about some questions then. So remember, unreal present going to an unreal past. So if you had studied, an unreal past leading to an unreal present. So if you had studied something different at school or university, how would your life be different today? So let's imagine you had studied, I don't know, veterinary science or something like that. Okay. So if you had studied that at university, then now you would probably be a vet instead of your current job. Okay. If you had studied French at university, then probably now you would be working in France or one of the Francophone countries, practicing the language. So in the next sentence, if the internet hadn't been invented, would the world be a better place? So the internet was invented, of course. Otherwise, we wouldn't have this session today. But let's imagine the internet hadn't been invented. How would life be different now? Would it be better or would it be worse? You know, you wouldn't have all of this information at your fingertips. You would have to go to a library to find a book to get some information. You need to get an encyclopedia. So those are maybe the negative things. But also think about the other positive things that wouldn't be this online bullying culture, things like that. On to the next question then. So if you had been born into a rich family, how would your life be different now? So in the past, you would be born in this family. So how would that make your present different? Would you have a different job? Would you have more money? Would you be living? How would your life be different now in the present? And then for this final question, then, if you hadn't got your current job, if you had maybe failed the interview, if you had not applied for this job that you have now, what would you currently be doing? Would you still be looking for a job? Would you be in a different job? Would you have, I don't know, changed your life somehow? Okay, so think about that question. All right, so we've learned about type A, we've learned about type B, so let's now try to put them together. Okay, so we're going to have an activity where we just need to find the difference between type A and type B. Okay, so we're going to finish these sentences here with either type second and third conditional or type third and second conditional. Okay, so you remember that type A was second and third, so unreal present leading to an unreal past, and type 3 was about an unreal past leading to an unreal present. So the things that you're looking for are phrases that tell you it is in the past or phrases that tell you it is in the present. So in this first example, it's quite helpful for us because the if part talks about last year, so that's the past, and the second part of the sentence talks about now. Okay. So we know that it needs to be a mixture of the third conditional, the past, last year, with the second conditional, the present. So that would mean that we would have a sentence like, if I had paid more attention, I would not be struggling with this topic now. Okay, so that's a mixture of the third and the second. All right. If we look at the second sentence here, the first part of the sentence doesn't really help us, but the second part of the sentence helps us because it tells us about now. So that means that that is the present second conditional. So the first part of the sentence must be third. So it's very similar to this first example. So it would be, if they hadn't forgotten their tickets, they would be at the concert now. And that's our sentence there. Okay. All right. Moving on to the third example. Again, let's try to find some clues about if it's present or past present. Okay. So in the first part, there is no kind of help there, but here it tells us about yesterday. So we know that yesterday is the past, so that's going to be third conditional. But just notice here, if is in the middle of the sentence. So that means that the second part of the sentence, that the if part is third conditional and this other part is second conditional. So again, it follows this type 3-2 thing, but it's just in the opposite order. Okay, so it is, she would not feel so stressed if she had submitted the report on time yesterday. Okay, so type 2 comes first and type 3 comes after. Okay, on to number 3. Number 3. So okay, so in the first part of the sentence, it talks about earlier. In the other part of the sentence, it talks about now. So that is in the past, third conditional. This is in the present, second conditional. So it would be, if we had known about the traffic earlier, we would have arrived on time now. All right, so we're almost at the finish now. So on this one, we have now in the first part and last year in the second one. So if it is now, it's in the present, it's second conditional, and with last year, that would be in the past. So it's third conditional. So we need a type 2 Oh no, that should be the other way around. A slight mistake for that one. Okay. All right. So it would be, I would be in a better shape now if I had exercised regularly last year. And then into the final sentence here. Okay. So last semester, here's the past. So that's third. And then now is in the present. So that's second. So our sentence would be, if he had studied harder last semester, he would not need extra tutoring now. Okay, so that was quite intensive, quite difficult there. Okay, but hopefully that was useful for you. And then when it comes to your assignment time, you will be able to use these types of sentences to talk about methodologies and things like that. So if your methodology had been different, the results would be different now in the present. Okay, so if you have some feedback about the workshop today, you can scan this QR code and it will take you to a little Google form where you can leave your ideas. If you would like some extra help with mixed conditionals, we have created a little exercise for you where you can practice them at home. So it's some kind of homework for you if you want to think about that. So you can scan the QR code here. And again, it will take you to an online form with some questions, activities about mixed conditional sentences. Okay. And if you do ever need any more help, related to English for academic purposes, then please do get in touch with us. So that is me and my colleague there on the screen. That is our email address where you can contact us, and we can always help you with presentation skills, assignment skills, reading and listening skills, and we are always available to you in person and online. Okay, so thank you very much for joining us today for this workshop, and I hope to see you again at our next one in the new year.